And now, a partner session by Wejo.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today during this TC Mobility session. My name is Brett Scott, and I'm with Wejo, a little company in the northern part of England, and just happy to be here today. We're going to talk a little bit about what our company does and also talk about some of the challenges that we see coming to the auto industry and into businesses and other government agencies that are heading towards electrification and autonomy. So we'll go from there, and looking forward to getting your questions throughout the session, and we'll catch up with you at the end in our booth. First, a couple of quick pieces of information about our company. We were founded in 2014, and really it started from the notion that we saw car companies starting to connect a lot of vehicles, but it wasn't quite certain yet how they would use the data and how that data would get to other companies and what benefit it would serve. And over the last 7 years, we've been working with a number of automobile companies to make that dream come real for them and for us. We've got about 10.6 million cars connected on our platform. We've seen over 8.6 trillion data points, 336 billion plus miles curated, 37.3 billion unique journeys. And journeys are whenever you get in your car and turn it off or take a trip. One of the things that makes us a little different than some of our competitors is that our data is all high speed. So you get real-time information sent usually within 30 seconds to a minute to where it needs to go about what's happening on the roads. And we take care of that task of making sure that it's clean and anonymized if necessary. Our offices are located in Manchester. We have people like me throughout the United States, and we also have people in other parts of Europe. We usually take a step back, though, and ask ourselves, what is connected vehicle data and why is it really interesting? It's interesting because there are a lot of things that a vehicle can tell you about the surroundings and about its journeys that you couldn't necessarily get from a mobile phone or from other IoT devices. And so we pull that information out of the car and distill the things that are quite different than what you might find from other sources or at higher quality. As mentioned before, typically the data is pulled from vehicles every 1 to 3 seconds. We get it very quickly and then get it out to the vendors that would like to use it. High volumes of journeys tracked. We're seeing about 1.3 billion journeys every month right now, and it's accurate to 3 meters. So it's possible to know what's happening at a parking lot level from data that's coming from a car, and that might be a little difficult from a mobile phone. And we also have historical data available to us to help determine trends around hotspots and acceleration and where accidents might happen. All of these things are very interesting to help improve the roadways, also improve people's journeys. And also we group these information together so that it's clear how it might get used. And we have 6 basic categories that we look at. And we think of this as the vehicle digital fingerprint. This is a little different than studying a person because the car itself has a fingerprint. Cars tend to last about 12 years through multiple ownerships. And it's really interesting to see what happens to that car throughout its entire life cycle. That information includes static information, which is about the vehicle profile, the kind of vehicle that it is, the fuel type that it uses. Dynamic information about its mileage, its fuel level, tire pressures, for example. Movement information, this is sort of the core of what we do. We apply all of these other things to movement information, when and where the vehicle has been. These user-driven inputs, for example, what kinds of radio stations are listened to in cars, and how are the doors and lights used, and what temperatures are set inside, and how is that different than what might exist outside. And lots of environmental information is available from a car as well. Quite often we can get temperature, whether it's raining, whether it's just cloudy or sunny, and what are the road conditions, things that you can determine from sensors from the car. And then the vehicle itself has an energy profile. How much fuel is it using, whether it's gas or electric or diesel? These charging profiles are interesting, and fueling profiles are interesting. We take all that information and then we use our Wejo Adept platform and some basic building blocks we put together to collect the information, make sure that it's good and clean from the source, because sometimes it isn't. We specify it with the OEM. We make sure that it's in the right fitment in the car, that the cars are producing the right information. And then we put it together with blending. Sometimes we segregate out information that's really has a special purpose. And then depending on consents that are provided by the customer, we anonymize the information to meet legal requirements and the wishes of the customer. And we also employ machine and human analysis to the data to build all of the trends that are coming out. And this is really something that is important in understanding how things are moving ahead from a transportation space. And all of that is boiled down to solutions that we provide to the market. Basically, we have market and usage intelligence that we provide. We have a storefront for data that people can purchase license to use data from. We kind of think of that as a data dealership, the way that you might buy a car. You basically get the information from the OEM, and we clean it up and make sure that it's ready to present to end customers. And then we also make sure that the user interfaces are nice and easy and familiar. One of the things that we hear often is that this is so new, that this feels so new that it seems as though it might be a challenge to use, when in fact, it can be made easy and familiar and easy to address. So we spend time working on that. In our business intelligence and storefront solutions, there are 4 basic categories that we look at, although there are more to look at as well. Driving events, movement events, traffic intelligence, and journey intelligence. These are sort of the basic categories of movements that we look at. Some of them are provided as data, and some of them are provided as intelligent reports or in other formats that are easily digested by the people using them. We talk a lot about data, but in truth, the nation has about 24,000, the US has about 24,000 different municipalities. And as you might imagine, some of the smaller ones and some smaller businesses don't have data scientists available to them. So we take on that work internally and provide the reporting that's necessary from the trends that we see to build on their business. And beyond these 4, there are other things that are becoming very interesting. Particularly in working with governments, we find that there are lots of common road conditions that exist in different government agencies. Incident avoidance, every municipality would like to reduce the number of accidents or traffic conditions that occur. There's weather that can affect traffic flow. Vehicle occupancy might affect the usage and how it's counted on a roadway. The parking infrastructure is becoming an important topic now that people are home more during the day, and downtown parking is likely to increase as people work from home. Work zone safety is also important, as lots of road construction and infrastructure projects are coming underway. And we're finding that the vehicle from the data can help inform where people move when all of these things are occurring, and it can make the traffic conditions in cities much more smooth. So we definitely work with government agencies to assist on these very common problems that are felt in every government. One new one that's coming this way, and we've certainly heard about it during this mobility session, is electrification. As the nation and all nations move to an electric fleet, they're going to experience a lot of challenges on how to charge vehicles, where they should be charged, how many are they going to sell, and how rapidly are people going to adopt this new technology. We have seen on our platform 14 million journeys on EV vehicles, and right now we're tracking about 115,000 of them. And that turns out to be enough to start building some basic trends around how electric vehicles are being used and what we might do to improve the adoption of electric vehicles and make people more comfortable considering them. This raises an interesting question, though, because we hear a lot about range anxiety. And as we push towards electrification, you got to wonder, is range anxiety really a blocker to success for the entire EV market? I mean, every auto company is pushing to launch new electric cars to meet various mandates around the world. We know that California has mandated that by 2035, new passenger cars should all be electric. So what's going to get us on that path to electrification? And along those questions, we have the bigger questions around infrastructure. We're all used to going to gas stations today, but what would it mean if we had to go to charging stations? And should that be the way? And where should the charging stations be? Should they be at home, at businesses, along the roadways, or other places? There are questions about how people fuel, and can people adapt to the new way of filling up your car? Do you go to a station, or do you just get used to plugging in it at night and it being full in the morning? And the bigger question is range anxiety really, is it a real thing? Or is it something, or is there something else that's driving the key purchase consideration for electric vehicles? It's our view that the data from existing cars can help answer some of these questions now, and help guide us as we determine what legislation is needed, what car companies need to do to make adoption better. And it's certainly why we're focusing on this, among other things. So to help this discussion along, I thought I'd do a little quiz for people and ask everyone, based on what you know and what you think, how many miles do you think the average car gets driven every day? Is it less than 10 miles? Is it over 40 miles? Is it somewhere in between? I asked one of our data scientists to pull the data from one of our OEMs that I know has a good mix of electric vehicles, hybrids, has internal combustion engine cars, and for us old fogies, internal compression engine cars, the diesels. The result is kind of interesting to me. 36 miles a day. So the typical car in the United States drives about 36 miles, or gets driven about 36 miles a day. Now, if you think about it, all the OEMs are pushing to get high range, high capacity batteries into cars for lots of reasons, but the real usage of cars, the typical usage of cars, is much less than that. So the availability of data will probably help us answer these questions about how much battery power to put in and what to do about that. And then the answer is different from state to state. So if you look around the states, you'll see that, interestingly, Mississippi has the highest amount of daily use, and Washington, D.C. has the lowest amount of daily use. Now, there are a lot of reasons that might feed into that equation. It could be that because stores are closer in Washington, D.C., people have to drive less, and in Mississippi, they might have to drive more to get to stores and work and what have you. But further data analysis would help us understand why different states behave differently, and what legislation and what sales behavior can be influenced by really understanding on a state-by-state level how people are using their electric vehicles. Actually, this is all cars, pardon me. Let's ask the question about electric cars. Would you say that they get driven less than 10 miles a day, or maybe over 40 miles a day? This one actually surprised me quite a bit. The answer across the nation is the average electric car is being driven about 15 miles a day. Now, that's rather significant. It's considerably less than the typical amount per day. And at 15 miles a day, not much of a charging infrastructure would be required to keep the car charged up. You could literally charge on 120 volts over a part of the night and keep your car full. So again, this is based on certain cars that are already on the road, and as we know, charging capacity increases, this number is likely to increase. But it's still considerably lower than the range capacity that's being built into cars. So there must be factors that are going into why they are being driven as low as they are being driven. And with electric vehicles, we can see that West Virginia, oddly, maybe not oddly, is the state that has the highest daily use of electric cars, or at least miles driven, and South Dakota has the lowest. And we haven't dug into the data yet to see why this is the case, but it's, again, very different than what we saw from internal combustion engine cars. And it tells us that people are driving these cars differently, and there might be something in that to help explain how they're used, why they're being bought, and what we could do to improve the traction on electric vehicles. Now, this will lead to a very interesting finding. 99% of all cars driven drive less than 141 miles a day. So if we're asking the question, if daily miles are so low, why is range anxiety even a topic? really we're finding that the vast majority of electric cars that are built can satisfy 99% of driving that's done every single day. So with that in mind, what's happening with that 1% that's making people a little nervous about buying electric cars or maybe considering something else? It turns out that that 1% of vehicles is being driven by a lot of different kinds of people. It's not the same people that are driving over 140 miles a day. So lots of people will buy a car and then once a year take a trip someplace outside of their normal environs. And that one trip is driving their purchase decision for something more than what they need on a daily basis. So part of the answer is educating people on how they use vehicles and helping them understand how they use vehicles to help improve their or change their purchase decision. There's also some policy decisions that can be made about where charging stations should be placed and how we improve charging at home and what we do to overall improve the acceptance of electric vehicles. Our view is looking at the cars that we have today on the road will inform all of those things, and we're hoping to find partners in various industries to collect more data to build the story up so that as we head towards 2035 and into 2040, the good wealth of information will guide us in a good path from a policy standpoint. And so I'm going to leave it at there for now. Please, if you have a moment, take a moment to visit our booth. Drop any questions that you have there at our booth. I want to give TechCrunch a thank you for what has been a very seamless process making this work, and thanks to the remainder of the Wejo team for pulling this all together. Looking forward to talking to everyone again. Have a good day.